Settle your shoulders. Let your jaw loosen. Let your hands rest in a way that asks nothing of them. In this telling there will be nothing sudden, nothing loud, nothing that rushes at you from the dark. The world will move slowly, like ash drifting in still air, and you will be only a quiet witness, walking at a distance where nothing needs to be fought. If you feel your breathing lengthen as you listen, that is enough. The road will carry the story for you. So let's begin our journey together on this incredible adventure. Far from any court that still pretended to keep calendars, there was an old causeway built of stone blocks the color of cooled iron. The blocks had been fitted by hands that believed the road would outlast every traveler, and in that belief they were not wrong. Moss had learned the seams, rain had softened the edges, and the wind had combed a thin grit into the joints, but the line of the causeway still held its direction with stubborn patience. It ran between low hills of pale grass and black rock, and it led toward a region where the sky always seemed to hang a little lower, as if listening to the ground. A lone figure walked there, not because it was brave to do so, but because there was nowhere else that asked less. A cloak hung from narrow shoulders, stitched from cloth that had once been dyed and now had the tired neutrality of dust. Under the cloak, the traveler carried simple things that did not rattle. A small lantern, unlit in daylight. A water skin. A bundle of parchment tied with twine. A short blade kept more from habit than intention. No crest showed on the traveler's chest, no vow was spoken aloud, and no companion's steps followed close behind. In the old days, people would have called such a person an exile, or a pilgrim, or a deserter. Those words relied on institutions that no longer held the weight they once did. Now the traveler was simply someone still walking, and even that felt like a kind of quiet inheritance. The causeway rose slightly and began to pass between taller stones that stood like broken teeth. On the left, a collapsed watchtower leaned into itself, its upper ring split and sagging. On the right, a stand of thin trees held leaves that were too small for the season, as if the world had forgotten how to finish growing them. Somewhere beyond the trees, water moved in a slow channel, and its sound had the steadiness of a clock that no one checked anymore. The traveler did not look for signs, because signs tended to speak in promises. Instead, the traveler watched what the land chose to reveal. The way the grass lay flattened in narrow lines where carts had once passed, the way stones had been stacked near a ditch as though someone had tried to repair it and then simply stopped, the way an old rope bridge hung in tatters over a shallow ravine, swinging slightly even when the wind seemed to pause. At midday the light became diffuse, filtered through a veil of high cloud, and the world lost its sharp contrasts. That softened everything, even the ruin. It made the broken tower look less like a wound and more like a tired posture. It made the causeway feel less like a command and more like a suggestion. The traveler came to a place where the road widened around a low shrine. The shrine had no roof, only 4 pillars and a stone table between them. On the table sat a shallow bowl, and in the bowl lay a scatter of pale coins. They were not bright. Each coin held the faint relief of a face worn down by passing fingers and time. The traveler slowed, and for a moment the body remembered an older reflex, a small tightening as if to check whether anyone watched. No one watched. The land itself was the only witness, and the land had seen too much to judge small choices. The traveler reached into a pouch and added a single coin to the bowl, not as payment, not as bargaining, but as an acknowledgement that someone had once believed this place mattered. Then the traveler moved on without looking back. The coin made no sound that carried. It simply joined the others, an addition that changed nothing and yet could not be taken back. Beyond the shrine, the causeway descended toward a valley where stone walls traced the shapes of fields. The walls were low, made of rocks piled without mortar, and they ran in long lines that guided the eye the way rivers guide a map. The fields themselves were empty. Here and there the earth had been turned recently enough to show darker soil, but no crops stood. The work had begun, and then it had been abandoned at the stage where effort still looked like hope. A cluster of buildings sat at the center of the valley. It was not a town in the old sense. There was no market square, no bell tower, no banners. There were only houses built close together, their roofs of slate and thatch patched in different eras. Smoke rose from one chimney in a thin thread, steady and unhurried. The sight of that smoke made the traveler stop again, not out of fear, but out of the gentle surprise of evidence that life continued. The path from the causeway to the buildings was not paved. It was a track worn by feet and a few narrow-wheeled carts. As the traveler approached, the sounds of the place came into reach. The soft clink of pottery, a door closing carefully, a dog's distant bark that did not carry any urgency. Somewhere, a hammer tapped against wood, but the rhythm was slow, like a person working more to keep the hands moving than to finish anything. The first person the traveler saw was an older woman sitting on a low stool beside a wall. She had a basket at her feet, and she was sorting through dried herbs with fingers that moved as if they knew the task by touch alone. Her hair, once dark, had thinned and turned the color of ash. She did not look up immediately when the traveler came into view. She finished the motion she was in, placed one bundle in the basket, then lifted her eyes with a patience that suggested she had learned not to be startled. "You're late," she said, not as accusation, but as observation. The traveler blinked, unsure whether the words were meant for this moment or some older pattern. "I didn't know I was expected," the traveler answered. The woman's mouth formed a faint curve that was not quite a smile. "No one is expected anymore," she said. "That's why it feels like being late. When there's no schedule, time becomes a kind of weather. You arrive when you arrive." The traveler stood in the street between houses, feeling the weight of being seen. It had been a long while since anyone's attention had rested on the traveler without demanding something. "I'm passing through," the traveler said, because that was safer than saying anything that sounded like belonging. "Passing through is what everyone says," the woman replied. "Some mean it. Some say it because they're afraid the place will claim them if they admit they're tired." The traveler glanced down the street. A few faces appeared behind shutters and then retreated. Not from fear of violence, but from the habit of caution. In times when the world had been full, strangers carried possibilities. Now strangers carried only uncertainty, and uncertainty was exhausting. "What is this place called?" the traveler asked. The woman looked toward the valley's edge, as if checking whether the name still sat there in the landscape. "We used to call it Lark's Hollow," she said. "Not because larks sing here now. Because they did, and because we wanted to remember what it meant to hear something that wasn't a warning." The traveler absorbed the name without repeating it. Repetition could make things feel like claims, and the traveler had learned to be careful about claims. The woman reached into the basket and held out a small bundle of dried leaves tied with thread. "For your water," she said. "It will make it taste less like old leather." The traveler hesitated, then accepted the bundle with both hands, as if it were fragile. "Thank you." "You can pay if you want," the woman said, "but if you do, pay the hollow, not me. Leave something in the shrine by the road. We keep it there so the road remembers we exist." "I already did," the traveler said, surprised to hear the confession. The woman's eyes softened, and for a moment the lines in her face looked like the pattern of the stone walls in the fields. "Then you've already spoken the language we understand," she said. "Come. There's a bench by the well. You look like you've been holding your breath for days." The traveler followed her gesture to a circular well at the center of the cluster of houses. The well was capped with a heavy wooden lid, and beside it was a bench worn smooth by use. The traveler sat carefully, feeling the wood's slight give, and listened to the hollow's quiet. The woman returned to her herbs, but she spoke without turning. "What are you carrying?" she asked. The traveler's hand drifted to the parchment bundle beneath the cloak. "Paper," the traveler said. "Paper is rarer than food now," the woman replied. "It lasts longer in the mouth too, though it's harder to swallow." The traveler let out a small breath that almost became laughter, then decided it was not laughter, only release. "They're notes," the traveler said. "A record of places that still have light." The tapping of the hammer in the distance paused, then resumed, as if someone had listened and decided not to intrude. "Light," the woman repeated, tasting the word as though it had once been common. "Do you mean firelight, or something else?" "I don't know," the traveler admitted. "Sometimes it's a kiln still warm. Sometimes it's a chapel where the candles are replaced even though no one prays aloud. Sometimes it's a person who keeps sweeping the same doorstep in an empty street." The woman nodded slowly, and the nod carried no judgment. "You're collecting proof," she said. "Not of glory, of continuation." The traveler looked at the hands resting on the knees, hands that had done nothing heroic. "If I write it down," the traveler said, "it feels less like it might vanish the moment I look away." "That's the problem with trying to hold the world," the woman replied. "You end up with ink under your nails and nothing in your arms." The traveler heard the truth in that, but it did not feel like a reprimand. It felt like a person saying the weather will change, so you should not lean all your weight on the sky. A younger man approached the well, carrying a bucket. His clothes were patched and clean, and his posture held the careful straightness of someone who had learned manners as a survival skill. He set the bucket down, glanced at the traveler, then looked away with polite restraint. "New face," he said, mostly to the woman. "Old road," the woman answered, as if that explained everything. The young man lifted the well's lid and drew water with a rope that creaked softly. His movements were practiced, and the sound of the rope was oddly comforting, a mundane friction that suggested the world still had small tasks. When he finished, he replaced the lid and carried the bucket toward a house with a sagging porch. At the door he paused and spoke over his shoulder. "If you need a place to sleep," he said to the traveler, "there's a loft above the tannery. It smells like old hide, but it's dry." The traveler nodded, unable to find the right words. Gratitude felt heavy in the mouth when it had not been used in a long time. After he left, the woman said, "His name is Rowan. He thinks offering shelter is the same as fixing the world. I don't correct him." "What is your name?" the traveler asked. The woman's fingers slowed over the herbs. "They call me Mirelle," she said. "My mother chose it because it sounded like a bell. Funny, what people choose when they believe bells will always ring." The traveler watched a small bird hop along a roofline. It was not a lark. It was a sparrow, plain and persistent. "I'm called Aaron," the traveler said, and as soon as the name was spoken it felt like a stone dropped into deep water, a small sound swallowed quickly, a commitment made without witnesses. Mirelle did not react, as if the name mattered more than the fact that it was offered. "Aaron," she repeated once, gently, then let it go. "If you stay until dusk," she said, "you'll see the fire on the ridge." "What fire?" Aaron asked. "The one nobody talks about directly," Mirelle replied. "Not because it's dangerous, because it makes people feel foolish. A flame that keeps burning when everything else has decided to rest. It sits up there like a stubborn thought." Aaron felt the instinct to look immediately, to measure the ridge in the distance, to turn the idea into a plan. That instinct was old armor, and it scraped against the calm of the hollow. Aaron let the instinct settle. "Why doesn't anyone go to it?" Aaron asked, keeping the voice low. Mirelle tied another herb bundle with steady care. "Some went," she said. They came back with soot in their hair and nothing new to say. They couldn't explain what they'd seen, so they stopped trying. After that, the fire became a kind of mirror. People feared seeing their own emptiness reflected in it. Aaron looked toward the valley's far edge where the ridge rose, dark against the clouded sky. There was no visible flame from here, only the suggestion of height. "I didn't come for answers," Aaron said, surprising even oneself with the honesty. "Then you'll do fine," Morel replied. "Answers are heavy. They make you walk like you're carrying someone else's bones." The afternoon in Lark's Hollow drifted without ceremony. Aaron stayed by the well, sometimes watching, sometimes letting the eyes half close. People moved through the street with the quiet industry of those who had accepted small duties. A child carried a bundle of sticks too large for the arms, dragging the ends along the ground, stopping often to adjust grip without complaint. An old man sat on a step carving a piece of wood into a shape that might have been a spoon, might have been nothing. A dog wandered, sniffed Aaron's boot once, then decided Aaron was not important and moved on. As the light began to thin, the air cooled in a way that made Aaron aware of the cloak's weight. The thought of the loft above the tannery returned, not as desperation, but as a simple possibility. Aaron stood, stretched the legs, and walked toward the building Rowan had indicated. The tannery sat near the valley's small stream. Its walls were stained darker than the other houses, and the smell around it was indeed of old hide, but not sharp, just persistent. The door was ajar. Inside, the room was empty of workers, but tools hung neatly, and a trough sat dry in a corner, as if waiting for a season that might never come. A ladder led up to the loft. Aaron climbed slowly, feeling each rung under the hands, and emerged into a low space where straw lay scattered over boards. A narrow window looked out toward the ridge. From here, the valley spread like a worn cloth, and beyond it the ridge rose, its line unbroken. Aaron set down the bundle of parchment and sat near the window. The air up here was cooler, carrying the scent of stream water and old wood. Aaron untied the twine and pulled out a few pages. The writing was small and careful, but not ornate. Names of places, brief descriptions, sometimes a sentence about a person met there. It was not a grand chronicle. It was a map of quiet survivals. Aaron had started it without ceremony, on a day when the road had seemed endless and the mind needed something to hold. At first it was only a list of fires still burning in ruins, but over time it became a record of small gestures, a woman mending a net by a dead lake, a man painting over graffiti on a fallen statue, a child singing to a cracked pot as if the pot were listening. Each note had felt like a bead on a string, something that could be touched in the dark. Now, in the loft, Aaron realized the notes had also been a way to avoid something else. Each entry was an outward gaze, a refusal to look too closely at what the road had been doing inside. The ridge outside held its quiet shape. The sky dimmed further, and the first hint of dusk touched the stones in the valley with a muted violet. Aaron waited without forcing the moment, letting the eyes rest on the ridge's line. When the fire appeared, it did so gently. Not a flare, not a sudden blaze, but a soft ember-bright point near the ridge's crest, as if someone had placed a lantern behind a rock. It grew slightly as the light faded, becoming more visible by contrast rather than by change. It did not flicker wildly. It held steady, a patient burn. Aaron watched it for a long time. The flame's steadiness made it feel less like a mystery and more like a habit. Somewhere up there, something continued because it had not yet learned how to stop. The thought that followed was quiet and uncomfortable. Perhaps that was all anyone was doing. Aaron did not write that down. The parchment did not need that weight. Down below, footsteps sounded on the tannery's floor, and then Rowan's voice called softly, not demanding attention, only offering presence. "You settled in?" "Yes," Aaron answered, leaning toward the loft opening so the voice could carry. Rowan stood at the base of the ladder, looking up without climbing. "Mirel said you might be watching the ridge," he said. "People come here for the fire sometimes. Or they come for the idea of it." "I can see it," Aaron said. Rowan nodded, though Aaron could only see the top of his head. "It looks closer than it is," Rowan said. "The path up is steep in places, but it's not dangerous. Just tiring." Aaron heard something in that last word, something that sounded like permission to choose tiredness without shame. "Have you been there?" Aaron asked. Rowan was quiet for a moment. "Once," he said. "I went because I wanted to bring back a story that would help people stay. I thought if I understood why it burned, I could turn it into a reason." "And?" Aaron asked, not pressing, just letting the question exist. Rowan exhaled. "It didn't give me a reason," he said. "It gave me a task." Aaron waited. Rowan's voice remained calm, but it had shifted, as if he were speaking from a place a little further inside himself. "There's an old kiln up there," he said. "Or something like a kiln. A stone bowl built into the rock, sheltered from the wind. The fire sits in it like it belongs there. And next to it there are stacks of wood that shouldn't still be dry. Someone brings the wood. Or something does. The first time I went, I thought I'd meet a caretaker. I didn't. So the fire is unattended," Aaron said. Rowan's laugh was small and unbright. "Nothing is truly unattended," he said. "It's just that the one who tends it doesn't stand where you can thank them." Aaron looked again at the ember point on the ridge. It did not look like a beacon. It looked like a single insistence. Rowan continued, "When I was there, I found a bundle of ash wrapped in cloth. Not fresh ash. Old, fine, almost like flour. And there was a mark pressed into the cloth, a simple circle with a line through it. No words. Just that." Aaron felt the mind reach for association, for the comfort of recognizing symbols. The mark did not match anything Aaron had seen in ruined chapels or abandoned keeps. That unfamiliarity made it strangely gentle. It belonged to no authority Aaron could name. "What did you do with it?" Aaron asked. "I left it," Rowan said. "I wanted to carry it back, but my hands wouldn't. Not because of fear. Because it felt like taking someone's last breath and putting it in a pocket." Aaron understood the image, and the understanding did not sting. It simply settled. Rowan shifted his weight. "If you go," he said, "don't go looking for revelation. Go because you want to see the stone bowl and the stacks of wood and the way the fire makes the rock look warm. Go because it's a place where the world is doing one clear thing." Aaron nodded, though Rowan could not see it. "Thank you," Aaron said. Rowan's voice returned to its surface steadiness. "There's soup at Mirel's," he said. "Not much, but it's honest. If you want, come before it cools." Aaron considered, then said, "I will." Rowan left. The footsteps faded. Aaron remained by the window a while longer, watching the ridge fire as dusk deepened. The sky took on the first stars, faint behind cloud wisps. The valley below became a pooled darkness with only a few small lights where homes held lanterns. Those lights did not compete with the ridge flame. They simply existed in their own separate patience. Aaron descended the ladder and stepped back into the street, cloak pulled close. The air had turned crisp, and the smell of soup reached faintly from Mirel's house, mingling with wood smoke. The hollow sounds had softened further. Doors closed gently. A dog settled somewhere with a sigh. The world seemed to fold itself into night without any struggle. Mirel's house was small, its window glowing amber. Inside, the room was warm, and a pot sat over a low fire. Rowan was there, seated at a table with 2 other villagers. They looked up as Aaron entered, not startled, simply acknowledging a new presence. Mirelle ladled soup into a bowl and placed it in front of Aaron. The soup was thin but fragrant with the herbs she had sorted earlier. Aaron ate slowly, letting the warmth move through the chest. It was not the taste of celebration. It was the taste of a day that had been survived without making a story of it. Conversation in the room was sparse. People spoke of practical things, a roof tile that needed replacing, a fence that had fallen, the stream's water level. No one mentioned the ridge fire directly. When the subject hovered near it, words shifted elsewhere, as if respecting an unspoken boundary. Aaron watched this without judgment. Some things, Aaron realized, were kept quiet not because they were forbidden, but because speaking them had once led to disappointment. After the bowls were emptied, Mirelle brought out a small cloth and set it on the table. On it lay 3 pieces of charcoal, a stub of chalk, and a small knife with a dull edge. Rowan frowned slightly. "What's that for?" Mirelle looked at Aaron. "For the record keeper," she said. "If you're writing places that still have light, you should be able to mark where the light fails. Not as tragedy, as fact." Aaron touched the charcoal lightly. "I don't write about failure," Aaron said, then heard how that sounded, like avoidance made into principle. Mirelle's gaze was steady and kind. "Not writing it doesn't prevent it," she said. "It just makes the page dishonest. And dishonesty is heavier than sorrow." Aaron sat back, feeling the words settle into a place that had been guarded for a long time. It was not an argument. It was an opening. Rowan watched Aaron's face as if seeing a shift too small to name. Aaron picked up a piece of charcoal and turned it between fingers. It left a faint gray on the skin. The simple physical trace felt like permission to admit that the road had also left traces. "I don't know how to write it," Aaron said quietly. Mirelle nodded once. "Then start by writing what you saw today," she said. "A hollow that still boils soup. A ridge that keeps a fire. A young man who offers a loft that smells bad. An old woman who doesn't pretend the larks are coming back." The villagers at the table did not react with pride. They did not straighten as if praised. They simply accepted being described as they were, which was perhaps the rarest kind of acceptance. Aaron did not write yet, but the hand moved toward the parchment bundle as if the decision had been made somewhere below language. Outside, night continued to settle. The ridge fire remained visible through the window, a steady point above the dark valley. It did not call. It did not threaten. It waited in the way stones wait, indifferent to whether anyone came, yet oddly reliable in its presence. When Aaron finally left Mirelle's house and returned toward the tannery loft, the air smelled of damp earth and smoke. The street was nearly empty now. Only one lantern burned at the far end, near a doorway where someone had placed it as if to guide anyone who might still be out. Aaron walked past the well, past the bench, past the stacked stone walls that framed the fields like old thoughts. In the loft, Aaron lay down on the straw and stared at the window's rectangle of sky. The ridge fire was still there, slightly dimmer now that the eye adjusted to darkness, but steady nonetheless. Aaron listened to the hollow silence, which was not total silence, but a collection of small rests. The creak of wood cooling, the faint rush of the stream, the occasional soft shift of straw under Aaron's own weight. Sleep did not come immediately. Instead, Aaron felt the mind turning toward the ridge path, measuring it not as a challenge but as a continuation. The thought of the stone bowl, the stacks of dry wood, the cloth-wrapped ash with the circle and the line, all sat in the mind with a calm insistence. Near midnight, Aaron sat up and untied the parchment bundle. By the faint light from the window, Aaron wrote a new entry. The words were simple. They described Lark's Hollow as it was. The soup, the well, the way people avoided turning the ridge fire into a legend, the way Morel sorted herbs as if the world still deserved careful hands. Aaron wrote Rowan's offer of shelter and did not embellish it. Then Aaron wrote one line that had never appeared in the notes before, because it did not describe something external. Aaron wrote, in charcoal dark strokes, that there had been a moment at the table when the page felt less like a shield and more like a weight that could be carried honestly. When the line was finished, Aaron stopped. The idea did not need repeating. It had done its work by becoming ink, and now it could be left behind. Aaron lay down again. The body softened. The ridge fire held steady. And as the night wore on, Aaron began to understand that the road ahead was not asking for heroism. It was asking for attention, and for the ability to move on without turning every step into a verdict. Toward morning, the cold increased slightly, and Aaron woke before dawn without alarm. The hollow was still asleep. The sky had a thin, pale band near the horizon. The ridge fire was faint now, not because it had changed, but because day was returning. Aaron rose quietly, gathered the bundle, and descended the ladder. Outside, the air felt clean, as if night had rinsed it. Aaron walked to the stream and washed hands, watching the charcoal traces swirl away in the water. The act did not feel like erasing. It felt like making room for other marks. At the well, Aaron found a small package resting on the bench, wrapped in cloth. There was no note. Inside were 2 pieces of bread, a pinch of salt and pepper, and a small twist of dried fruit. The offering was modest, and precisely because it was modest, it carried a kind of sincerity that grand gifts could not. Aaron looked around. No one watched. The hollow gave what it could without requiring thanks. Aaron left a coin by the well, not as payment, but as a response in the same quiet language. Then Aaron started toward the ridge path, which began behind the far houses, climbing through grass and rock toward the point where the fire had burned all night. As Aaron climbed, the valley fell away. The stone walls of the fields became lines in the earth. Lark's Hollow became a cluster of shapes, then a suggestion. The wind-up here was cooler and steadier, and it carried a faint scent of burned wood that did not belong to any chimney. The path was indeed tiring, not because it was steep in a dramatic way, but because it asked for steady effort over time. Aaron's breathing found a rhythm. Footsteps scuffed gravel. Occasionally a loose stone rolled a short distance and came to rest. Nothing on the ridge moved quickly. Even the clouds seemed to drift with deliberate patience. After a long climb, the path curved behind an outcrop and the stone bowl came into view. It was set into a hollow in the rock, sheltered by a natural overhang. The fire inside it was smaller in daylight, a concentrated flame that hugged the fuel. The stones around it were darkened by years of smoke. The warmth reached Aaron's face like a quiet exhale. Nearby, as Rowan had said, stacks of wood stood under a crude lean-to made of planks and stone. The wood looked dry. It should not have. Yet it was, as if the place itself refused damp. Aaron approached slowly, not out of fear, but out of respect for the steadiness of the flame. The fire did not react. It did not flare. It continued its patient work of turning wood into ash. Beside the stone bowl, partly tucked under a flat rock, Aaron saw the cloth bundle Rowan had described. It was still there. The cloth was gray, and on it the mark was pressed, a circle with a line through it, simple and without ornament. Seeing it in person made it feel less symbolic and more like a practical sign, the way one might mark a jar in a pantry. Aaron knelt. The rock beneath the knees was cold. The warmth from the bowl balanced it slightly, creating a small zone where opposites coexisted without conflict. Aaron did not touch the bundle yet. Instead, Aaron watched the fire. The sound was minimal, a soft crackle at the edge of hearing. The flame's motion was unhurried. It seemed to take its time with each piece of wood, as if it knew there would be more. In the brightening day, the ridge felt ordinary. There was no choir, no vision, no sudden understanding. And still, Aaron felt something shift, not in the way of revelation, but in the way of a person realizing that a door has been left unlocked for a long time and no one has said so out loud. Aaron reached toward the wood stacks and noticed something else. A small indentation in the rock near the base of the lean-to. Within that indentation lay a few objects that the rain could not easily reach. A broken comb, a strip of leather, a small ring of tarnished metal. Offerings, perhaps, or simply items left behind by those who came and did not know what to do with their hands. Aaron's fingers hovered over the objects, then withdrew. Taking would feel wrong. Leaving might feel presumptuous. For now, witnessing was enough. Aaron finally placed fingertips on the cloth bundle. It was light, and the ash inside shifted softly. The sensation was oddly intimate, like holding a sealed letter from someone long dead. Aaron did not unwrap it. Aaron only held it for a moment, then set it back exactly where it had been, beneath the rock, protected from wind. The act was small, and yet it carried a strange steadiness. It was a way of saying, "I have seen you, and I will not turn you into a story that serves me." Aaron sat back on the heels and looked out from the ridge. Beyond the valley, the land stretched in long, subdued colors. Far away, faint silhouettes of ruins rose, their outlines softened by distance. The causeway Aaron had traveled was not visible from here, but Aaron could imagine it, a line of stone blocks continuing to insist on direction. The fire beside Aaron continued to burn, and in that continued burning, Aaron sensed the presence of a caretaker not as a person to meet, but as a pattern of attention. Someone or something had decided that this flame should not go out. That decision had been repeated many times, quietly, without ceremony, perhaps without even being spoken. Aaron rose slowly. Knees stiffened, then loosened. The body accepted the climb and accepted the coming descent. Aaron looked once more at the stone bowl, the wood stacks, the cloth bundle with its simple mark. Then Aaron turned to follow the ridge path onward, because the ridge did not end here. It ran along the high ground, leading toward other hollows, other ruins, other small insistences. As Aaron walked along the ridge, the wind carried the scent of ash and dry grass. The sun rose higher, thinning the last traces of dawn. The world remained quiet, and the road ahead, visible now as a pale thread over stone, offered no promise except that it continued. The ridge carried on with a steadiness that did not need to be announced. Stone rose and fell in long, patient curves, and the path threaded between them with the modest certainty of something worn into place by many similar journeys. Aaron followed it without marking the steps, letting the body learn the rhythm again after the climb. The fire behind slowly slipped from sight, not because it vanished, but because the land turned its face elsewhere, and that felt like a natural courtesy rather than a loss. As the ridge widened, the wind changed character. It no longer came as a single current, but as layered movements, some cool and close to the ground, others warmer and higher, passing over Aaron's head without touching. The sound of it was not dramatic. It moved through grasses and low scrub with a dry whisper, brushing against stone and then letting go. Each sound rose, completed itself, and faded without echo, as if the ridge absorbed excess feeling. The path here bore fewer signs of recent passage. There were no clear footprints, no broken stems, no scraps of cloth caught on thorns. Instead, there were subtler indications. A place where stones had been shifted to make the footing easier, a shallow groove where water had been guided away from the trail, a stretch where the grass leaned in one direction as if someone had passed through days ago with a careful stride. These signs did not announce a presence so much as they suggested consideration. After a time that was felt rather than counted, The ridge sloped downward into a long saddle between two rises. From there, the land opened into a broad plateau dotted with ruins that did not cluster into a single narrative. Each stood alone, remnants of different efforts that had never quite aligned. A low circular wall that might once have enclosed animals. A stone pillar broken near its base, its upper half lying where it fell, carved with patterns that no longer completed themselves. A roofless structure with walls thick enough to suggest it had once held heat carefully, perhaps for bread, perhaps for something less ordinary. Aaron slowed, not out of caution, but out of attention. Places like this could be crossed quickly, but quickness felt like a refusal to acknowledge the labor that had shaped them. The plateau held the air of something that had been useful for a long time and then gently released. Near the center stood a basin carved directly into the rock, shallow and wide. Rainwater had collected there recently, and the surface was still, reflecting the pale sky. Around the basin were marks that suggested tools had once been set down regularly, their placement worn into the stone by repetition. Aaron knelt and touched the water with 2 fingers. It was cold, but not unpleasant. The contact anchored the body in the present moment without ceremony. Aaron drank sparingly, then sat back and looked around. No sound intruded except the wind and the distant call of a bird too far away to demand identification. The plateau felt like a pause in a sentence, not a conclusion, but a space where breath was taken without interrupting meaning. As Aaron rose, a movement at the edge of vision resolved into a person emerging from behind the low circular wall. The person did not approach quickly. They walked with the ease of someone who had nothing to defend and nothing to offer that required persuasion. Their clothing was layered and practical, the colors muted by sun and dust. A pack hung at their back, and a long staff rested lightly in one hand. They stopped at a respectful distance, far enough to avoid startling, close enough to be unmistakably present. "Morning," the stranger said, voice even, neither testing nor retreating. "Morning," Aaron replied. For a moment, neither spoke further. The pause was not awkward. It was the kind of pause that allowed each person to register the other as real. "You came from the ridge fire," the stranger said, not as a question, but as a recognition of scent and ash that still clung faintly to Aaron's cloak. "Yes," Aaron said. The stranger nodded. "It does that," they said. "Leaves a trace, even when you don't take anything." Aaron felt no need to explain what had been taken or left. "Do you live here?" Aaron asked. "No," the stranger replied. "I tend it when I pass. And when I don't, I trust that someone else will." The words settled without weight. They did not seek credit. Aaron studied the stranger's face. There was nothing remarkable about it, and that ordinariness felt intentional, as if the person had learned how to exist without becoming a symbol. Lines at the corners of the eyes spoke of years spent outdoors, of squinting against wind and light rather than against threat. "I'm Aaron," Aaron said, offering the name as one might offer water, without ceremony. The stranger inclined their head slightly. "I'm called Hale," they said. "Not because I always am. Because it's a reminder." Aaron accepted that without comment. Names had become like that lately, less about description and more about aspiration quietly repeated. They walked together across the plateau, not side by side, but in a loose parallel that allowed each to choose footing independently. Hale pointed out nothing unless Aaron's gaze lingered. When Aaron paused near the broken pillar, Hale said only, "That one held a bell once. It cracked before it fell." "What happened to the bell?" Aaron asked. Hale shrugged lightly. "It was melted down. The sound mattered less than the metal." Aaron imagined the bell's last tone, not as a dramatic peal, but as a dull, uneven note that told people it was time to stop listening for it. They continued toward the far edge of the plateau, where the land dipped again and a long valley stretched out, greener than the hollow Aaron had left. The grass there grew taller, and patches of cultivated earth showed recent care. Smoke rose in 2 places, thicker than the thread from Lark's Hollow, and it carried the smell of something being cooked with intention rather than necessity. "There's a settlement down there," Hale said. "Larger than the Hollow, smaller than it wants to be." "Is it safe?" Aaron asked, hearing the old language surface and then soften. Hale considered. "It's stable," they said. "People argue. Tools break. Children run where they shouldn't. No one is waiting for the world to end there. That's as close as we get." Aaron nodded. Stability felt like a word that could be lived inside. They reached the descent, and Hale stopped. "I won't go further," Hale said. "My path turns east." Aaron felt a brief tightening at the prospect of parting, not from attachment, but from the recognition that some encounters existed to remind, not to accompany. "Before you go," Aaron said, "why do you tend the fire?" Hale looked back toward the ridge they had crossed, the fire now invisible in daylight. "Because it was tended for me once," Hale said. "When I came upon it in a winter that didn't seem like it would end, there was wood stacked and dry, and the bowl was warm. I didn't meet the one who had been there before me. I only knew they had chosen to act." Aaron waited. Hale continued, "I don't believe the fire keeps the world alive. I believe it keeps people from deciding too early that nothing remains to be done." The thought did not repeat itself. It settled and then moved on. Hale adjusted the strap of the pack. "Take the valley," they said. "The road there is quieter, but it leads farther." They turned and walked east, staff tapping lightly against stone, becoming part of the ridge's long memory. Aaron stood at the descent and looked down. The valley spread out with an openness that felt neither welcoming nor hostile. It simply existed, offering itself as the next consequence of the last choice. Aaron began the descent, letting gravity do its slow work, knees bending and straightening with practiced ease. As Aaron moved lower, sounds changed again. The wind softened, filtered by taller grass. Insects made small, intermittent noises that stitched the air together. The smell of cooking grew clearer, carrying hints of root vegetables and herbs that had not been stretched beyond their nature. The path here was more defined, bordered by stones set deliberately to keep it from wandering. Someone had cared enough to guide feet even when they did not know whose feet those would be. At the valley floor, the road split. One branch led toward the settlement, its edges worn smooth by frequent use. The other continued along the valley's length, narrower, less confident, skirting fields and low stands of trees. Aaron paused. The pull toward people was real, shaped by warmth and conversation and the promise of shared effort. The pull toward the longer road was quieter, shaped by habit and the knowledge that not all continuations gathered into communities. Aaron turned toward the settlement. The approach revealed details gradually. Fences built from mismatched wood enclosed small plots. Animals grazed, their movements unhurried. Children's voices carried, not raised in alarm, but in the loose play of energy that had not yet learned restraint. Adults moved among them with a practiced attentiveness that did not hover. Near the first houses, Aaron was noticed, but not challenged. A man lifting a crate paused, nodded once, and returned to his work. A woman carrying a basket adjusted her path to avoid collision, offering a brief smile that did not demand response. At the settlement center stood a large structure built from stone and timber, its roof intact, its doors open. Inside, the space was filled with benches, tools stored along the walls, and a long table scarred by years of use. It was not a hall for ceremony. It was a place where decisions were made and then undone and then made again. Aaron entered, feeling the air change, warmer and tinged with the smell of wood and oil. A few people sat at the table, heads bent together, voices low but animated. One of them looked up. She was middle-aged, with hair pulled back simply, eyes alert without sharpness. "You're not from here," she said. "No," Aaron replied. "Passing through?" she asked. "Yes." She nodded. "Then you're welcome to rest. Food is served when it's ready. Work is offered, not required." The phrasing eased something in Aaron's chest. "Thank you." She gestured to a bench. "Sit. If you want to tell us where you've been, we'll listen. If you don't, that's fine too." Aaron sat. The bench creaked softly. For a while, Aaron listened to the conversation at the table, learning the cadence of this place. They spoke of a bridge that needed reinforcing, of a disagreement about how much grain to store versus trade, of a family planning to move on when the weather shifted. The concerns were immediate, specific, and entirely unheroic. Eventually, the woman who had greeted Aaron turned back. "I'm Sela," she said. "We don't keep titles. They get in the way." "I'm Aaron," Aaron said again, the name feeling less like a stone now and more like a familiar tool. Sela studied Aaron briefly, then said, "You carry paper?" "Yes." "What do you write?" Aaron considered, remembering Morel's words about honesty. "I write where light persists," Aaron said. "And where it doesn't." Sela nodded. "Then you're doing necessary work," she said. "Not because it saves us. Because it keeps us from lying to ourselves." The words echoed, not as repetition, but as convergence from different paths. Food arrived, bowls of thick stew, bread still warm. Aaron ate with gratitude that did not feel like debt. Conversation continued around the table, expanding to include Aaron without pressure. Names were exchanged. Stories were offered lightly, without embellishment. As the day wore on, Aaron helped where help was needed. Carrying water. Holding a beam steady while it was set. Watching children for a short while so a parent could step away. None of the tasks were recorded. None needed to be. In the afternoon, Sela approached Aaron with a folded piece of parchment. "If you're recording," she said, "you might want this." Aaron unfolded it. It was a simple map of the valley and the surrounding ridges, drawn with careful but unornamented lines. Several paths were marked, along with notes about seasonal changes, water sources, and places where travelers tended to go missing, not from danger, but from choosing differently. "Who made this?" Aaron asked. "Many hands," Sela said. "We add to it when we learn something new. Take it. Add to it if you want. Or don't. Maps are suggestions, not commands." Aaron felt a familiar weight of responsibility, but this time it did not press down. It rested. As evening approached, the settlement's energy shifted. Tools were set aside. Animals were brought in. Fires were tended, not dramatically, but with the calm attention of people who had learned the cost of neglect. Aaron stood at the edge of the settlement and looked back toward the ridge. The fire there was invisible from this angle, hidden by land and distance. And yet Aaron felt its presence as a continuity rather than a destination. When night came, Aaron was offered a place to sleep, a simple pallet in a shared room. The sounds of others breathing, turning, settling created a low, steady background. It was different from the solitude of the road, but not unwelcome. Before sleep, Aaron took out the parchment and wrote again. The words described the plateau, hail, the basin of water, the settlement that chose stability over waiting. Aaron noted the map, the way knowledge here was treated as communal rather than owned. Aaron did not write about the fire as a symbol. Aaron wrote about it as a task someone would continue tomorrow. As the last line dried, Aaron lay back and allowed the body to rest. The day's movements replayed briefly and then dissolved. Outside, the valley held its shape in darkness. Somewhere beyond, the ridge carried its quiet burden of flame. You, listening, do not need to follow Aaron further tonight. The road will remain. The fire will continue its steady work. And as the world in this telling settles into its own patient rhythm, you are allowed to let your breathing slow, to loosen the places that have been holding without noticing. Nothing here will call out suddenly. Nothing requires your vigilance. You can remain a witness, or you can rest, and the story will continue on its own, carrying its light forward without hurry. Morning returned to the valley without ceremony. Light seeped into the shared room through narrow gaps in the shutters, and the air held the faint smell of yesterday's fires turned to cool ash. Aaron woke before most others, not from alertness, but from a simple habit of rising when the world began to change. Nearby, someone exhaled in a long, even breath and shifted deeper into sleep. A child murmured once and went quiet again. Aaron sat up slowly, letting the joints loosen, and listened. Beyond the walls, the settlement was already making its first small sounds. Wood being set down, a latch lifted carefully, footsteps crossing packed earth. These were not sounds that demanded attention. They were the gentle evidence of motion beginning again. Aaron folded the parchment and returned it to the bundle, then stepped outside into air that felt rinsed and cool. The valley grass held dew, and it caught the light in small points that vanished when the wind moved. Smoke rose thinly from a few chimneys, steady and pale. The animals stirred in their enclosures with soft snorts and the quiet shuffle of hooves. Near a trough, Sella was already awake, rinsing a wooden ladle. She looked up when she saw Aaron and nodded as though continuing a conversation that did not need to be spoken every time. "You'll leave," she said. Aaron did not pretend otherwise. "Yes," Aaron replied. "Not because I want to. Because I can." Sella set the ladle down and wiped her hands on a cloth. "Then take something you can use," she said, and walked toward a storage shed whose door hung slightly crooked. Inside, sacks of grain sat in neat rows, bundles of cloth were stacked on shelves, and tools leaned in orderly clusters. Sella reached for a small packet wrapped in waxed paper and tied with twine. "Salt," she said, placing it in Aaron's hands. "Not much. Enough to keep your tongue honest when the road tries to make everything taste the same." Aaron accepted it with a quiet weight of gratitude that did not press into debt. "Thank you." Sella's gaze held steady. "If you find a place that needs this map," she said, touching the folded parchment she had given yesterday, "don't treat it like a gift. Treat it like a thread. Threads are only useful if they're passed along." Aaron nodded, feeling the idea lodge itself and then fall away into consequence. The map in the bundle became less like a private resource and more like something temporarily entrusted. A few others gathered as the morning warmed. Rowan was not among them, but someone else offered a strip of dried meat, another person offered a length of twine, and an older man who had said little the previous day brought a small smooth stone and placed it in Aaron's palm without explanation. The stone was river-worn, cool, and ordinary. It took up no space. It carried no demand. Aaron slipped it into a pocket and did not ask for meaning. Some objects were best allowed to remain simple. At the settlement's edge, the road divided again. One path followed the valley and eventually rejoined older routes that led toward ruined keeps and their surrounding husks of villages. Another path climbed westward into a strip of higher ground where the trees grew denser and the air held more shade. On Sella's map, that western path was marked with a note written in small plain script: "Old orchard, water reliable, voices sometimes heard at dusk." Aaron looked from the map to the land. The valley route felt familiar in its openness, in the way distance could be read with the eye. The western climb felt like entering a page that had been folded closed for a long time. Aaron chose the western path. The climb began gently, then steepened. The grass gave way to scrub and low wildflowers, their colors muted, their scent faint but present when brushed by a sleeve. As Aaron moved higher, the settlement slipped behind a rise and disappeared, leaving only the valley's shape and a thin thread of smoke visible for a while, then nothing. Trees began to appear in clusters, then in thicker stands. Their trunks were narrow and close together, their branches interlacing overhead in a way that softened the light. The air cooled beneath them. The ground changed too, from packed earth to a mixture of leaf litter and moss, springy underfoot. The road became less a line and more a sequence of choices. Step between roots, around a rock, over a shallow dip where water gathered. Aaron walked without hurry, letting the pace match the environment. In the shade, even time seemed to move differently, not slower, but quieter, as if fewer sharp edges existed to catch on. After an hour, perhaps more, the scent of fruit reached Aaron in a faint, almost surprising way. It was not the bright smell of something freshly cut. It was the subdued sweetness of fallen apples turning slowly into earth. The trees around began to change. Their branches became heavier, their leaves broader. The trunks twisted in ways that suggested pruning long ago. Then the forest opened into a gentle slope dotted with old orchard trees. Many of the trees were gnarled, their limbs thick and low. Some had died and stood hollow, their bark peeled away in long strips. Others still lived, stubbornly producing small pale fruit that hung like quiet lanterns among the leaves. The ground beneath was littered with fallen apples, some intact, some split open, their flesh browned and softened. Bees moved lazily from one to another, unhurried. In the center of the orchard stood a stone well, older than the settlement in the valley, its circular wall worn smooth by hands and ropes. A wooden beam lay across it, and a bucket hung from a rope that looked new enough to suggest recent use. Nearby, a low stone bench had been built into the slope, as if someone had wanted a place to sit that would not rot. Aaron approached the well and peered into it. The darkness below held a faint glint. Water. Aaron lowered the bucket slowly, listening to the rope's soft rasp against the stone. The bucket met water with a gentle splash. Aaron drew it up and drank, the water cool and clean, carrying the faint mineral taste of deep stone. When Aaron finished, footsteps sounded behind, slow and unhurried. Aaron turned and saw an older man standing between two trees, watching. He carried a basket with a few apples inside, and his clothing was simple, patched, and clean. His hair was thin and white, tied back with a strip of cloth. He did not look surprised to find Aaron there. "You're taking the water," he said, voice even. "I'll leave it as I found it," Aaron replied. The man nodded as if satisfied with that level of care. "Most do," he said. "Some leave the bucket on the ground. That's how we know who is thinking beyond their own thirst." Aaron set the bucket back gently on the well's rim and made sure the rope lay properly, not tangled. "Do you live here?" Aaron asked. The man looked around the orchard as though consulting it. "Not in the way you mean," he said. "I sleep in the shed when rain is heavy. I sleep under the trees when it isn't. I keep the well in good order because the orchard is older than my comfort." Aaron glanced toward the far side of the orchard. A small shed stood there, half swallowed by vines. Its roof was intact, though sagging slightly. A door hung open. Within, the shadowed interior suggested stored tools, perhaps a cot. It looked like a place that accepted solitude without turning it into punishment. "What is your name?" Aaron asked. The man considered briefly, then said, "They call me Porin. I don't know if that was ever my first name. It's the one that stuck." Aaron nodded. I'm Aaron. Porin shifted the basket in his hands. Aaron, he repeated once, then let it go. You came from the Valley Settlement. Yes. They're doing well enough, Porin said, more to himself than to Aaron. Better than I expected when they first started hammering their haul together. They still think a roof makes a future. It helps, Aaron said. It does, Porin agreed. He walked closer, stopping at the stone bench and sitting with a slow exhale, as if the act of sitting was a conversation with his own bones. He set the basket beside him. Have an apple, he said, gesturing. Aaron chose one, wiped it on the cloak, and bit into it. The fruit was tart, not fully sweet, but alive with freshness. The juice felt like a small cleansing. Porin watched the orchard's branches sway slightly. You're carrying paper, he said, noticing the bundle at Aaron's side. I write, Aaron answered. What do you write about? Porin asked, not skeptical, only curious. Places, Aaron said. Tasks. People who keep doing something even when it would be easier to stop. Porin's gaze remained on the orchard. Then write this, he said. Write that trees can outlast the reasons they were planted. Write that even when the hands that pruned them are dust, the branches still remember the shape they were taught. Aaron felt the image settle, then move forward into an impulse, to look for the shape of what had taught the world to keep going, without turning that search into longing. Why is the rope new? Aaron asked, nodding toward the well. Porin smiled faintly, not pleased with himself, but amused by the continuity. Someone brings it, he said. A traveler, usually. They notice the old rope is fraying. They leave a coil, they move on. No one announces it. They simply don't like seeing something fail when it can be repaired. Aaron thought of Hale's wood stacks, of the ridge fire's quiet maintenance. The pattern appeared again, but it did not repeat as comfort. It formed a new consequence. Perhaps the world was not held up by grand structures at all, but by small repairs made by hands that did not expect to be remembered. Porin reached into the basket and pulled out a second apple, then a third, placing them in Aaron's hands. For the road, he said. You'll need the sharpness when your mouth starts forgetting what real taste is. Aaron accepted them and tucked them into the pack. Porin leaned back slightly, resting his hands on his thighs. You'll hear voices at dusk, he said quietly. Aaron looked at him. Are there people here then? Porin's face remained calm. No, he said. Not in the way you mean. Sometimes the orchard holds the sound of old conversations. Wind moves through branches a certain way. Leaves scrape and click. If you're tired, it can sound like your name being said from far away. Aaron felt a faint tightening, not fear, but the recognition that the mind could create closeness where none existed. Does it bother you? Aaron asked. Porin shook his head. It used to, he said. Now it reminds me that I have a mind that wants company. It's a simple thing to know about oneself. Knowing it doesn't fix it. It just stops it from steering without permission. Aaron sat on the bench at a polite distance, letting the orchard's calm settle into the body. The moment did not ask to become meaningful. It simply existed, rich with ordinary detail. The bee's lazy movement, the way an apple's skin shone dully in shade, the soft grit under the bench's stone where years of feet had brushed. Aaron stayed through afternoon. Not because Porin demanded company, and not because the orchard promised something, but because leaving immediately would have felt like treating the place as a resource rather than a living remainder. Aaron helped in small ways. Picked fallen branches and stacked them near the shed. Cleared a few rotting apples away from the well so their sweetness would not attract too many insects near the water. None of it felt like restoration. It felt like care offered without expectation of transformation. As the sun lowered, the light through the trees became warmer. Shadows lengthened, and the orchard's shapes began to blur slightly at the edges, as if the world was slowly folding itself into evening. Porin moved with the same unhurried pace, checking the rope, checking the shed door, checking nothing in particular and everything at once. When the first hint of dusk arrived, it did not come with a sharp shift. It came as a soft cooling. The birds changed their calls. The air became stiller. Aaron noticed the moment when the orchard scent deepened, fruit and earth becoming more pronounced as daytime heat released. Then the voices began, though voices was only the mind's best word for it. At first it was only a pattern, the rustle of leaves and the slow creak of branches sounding as if syllables were being formed and then abandoned. Aaron listened without leaning into it, letting the sounds exist without turning them into meaning. For a few minutes, the sounds aligned in a way that resembled speech. Not clear sentences, not commands. More like the gentle rise and fall of conversation carried from a distant room where no one expected an outsider to understand. Aaron felt the old longing stir, the desire to step closer, to catch the words, to be included. Aaron did not move. Porin sat beside the well, hands folded, eyes half-lidded. "There," he said softly. "That's what it does." "It sounds almost familiar," Aaron admitted. Porin nodded. "It will," he said, "because the mind builds familiarity out of fragments. It's not wrong for it to try. Just don't let it decide for you." Aaron listened until the pattern drifted apart again into plain wind and leaf. The brief episode passed without leaving residue, and that passing felt like a quiet relief. The orchard had offered an experience, not a verdict. Night came. Stars appeared in gaps between leaves. Porin lit a small lantern near the shed, not bright, only enough to keep the well visible. He offered Aaron the shed's corner to sleep. Aaron accepted, grateful for a roof that smelled of dried wood and old tools rather than tanned hide. Inside, the shed held a few rusted implements hanging on nails, a coil of twine, a chipped clay cup, and a small pile of blankets. Porin took one blanket for himself and left the rest for Aaron without comment. They lay down in separate corners, silence between them that did not feel empty. Aaron's sleep came in segments, not restless, simply layered, like the night itself. Between wakeful moments, Aaron heard the orchard's branches shifting. At one point, a faint sound came through the shed's boards, not a voice, not even the illusion of one, but a single apple falling and rolling slightly before coming to rest. The simplicity of that sound grounded the mind again. Before dawn, Aaron rose quietly and stepped outside. The orchard was dim, the air cool and clear. The well's stone looked pale. In the east, the sky began to lighten. Porin was already awake, sitting on the bench. He seemed to have slept and not slept, existing in a state where rest was taken in small portions. He nodded as Aaron approached. "You'll go on," he said. "Yes," Aaron replied. Porin reached into the basket, now refilled, and handed Aaron a small bundle wrapped in cloth. It was not heavy. "Dry tinder," he said, "for your lantern. There are places where fire is harder to find than water." Aaron took it. "Thank you," Aaron said. Porin looked toward the orchard's far edge where the path continued, disappearing into trees and then rising toward higher ground. "If you follow that," he said, "you'll reach an old road made of black stone. It leads to a bridge that still stands. Past the bridge there's a stretch of land that used to belong to a small order of caretakers. Not knights. Not priests. Just people who kept things from falling apart too quickly." Aaron listened carefully, feeling the map in the bundle gain new relevance, not as direction, but as opportunity to witness another kind of continuation. "Why tell me?" Aaron asked. Porin's face remained composed. "Because you're writing," he said. "And because you didn't try to turn the orchard's voices into prophecy. That tells me you'll see what's there without making it into an ornament." Aaron nodded. The words didn't warm the chest. They clarified the path. Aaron shouldered the pack and walked to the orchard's edge. Before leaving, Aaron turned once and looked back. The trees stood quietly, not solemn, not mournful, simply present. Porin lifted a hand slightly, then let it fall. There was no farewell ritual. The orchard did not need one. The path beyond threaded through denser trees. The ground rose steadily. The air cooled again. After an hour, the forest thinned, and Aaron stepped onto a roadway unlike the valley paths. This road was made of dark stone slabs fitted tightly, their surfaces polished by countless feet long ago. The slabs held a faint sheen even in daylight, as if the stone had learned how to catch light and keep it. Aaron followed the black road. It curved along a ridge line, offering intermittent views through gaps in the trees. Distant hills, pale fields, ruins scattered like bones that had been picked clean. The road itself felt like an artifact from a time when people believed in permanence enough to build for it. Ahead, the bridge came into view. It spanned a narrow gorge where a stream cut through rock, its water glinting far below. The bridge was arched, made of the same black stone as the road, its sides lined with low parapets carved with simple grooves. No statues, no banners, only pattern, as if beauty here had been treated as a form of maintenance. Aaron stepped onto the bridge and felt the subtle change in sound, the way footsteps on stone above a hollow space carried differently. The gorge below did not feel threatening. It felt deep, and depth carried its own quiet gravity. Halfway across, Aaron noticed something placed carefully at the parapet, a small bundle of sticks tied together, and beside it a piece of chalk. The sticks were dry. The chalk was worn. Someone had left them as if expecting that the bridge might someday need a mark or a flame. Aaron did not take them. Instead, Aaron placed one of Porin's apples beside them, a small addition that did not explain itself. The apple's red-green skin looked vivid against the black stone, like a quiet sign that life could still contrast with old material. On the far side, the road continued, but the land began to change. Trees gave way to open ground with low ruins spread over a wide area. Here the air felt different, carrying a faint metallic scent, not sharp, just present, as if iron lay beneath the soil. Stones protruded in broken lines that suggested foundations. A collapsed wall revealed the interior of a structure that might once have been a hall or a workshop. Aaron moved into the ruins slowly. The place had an odd cleanliness, not because it had been maintained, but because wind and time had already removed what could be scattered. What remained was heavy: stone, iron, and the bones of careful construction. In the center stood a courtyard enclosed by low walls. Within the courtyard, the ground had been swept recently. Not perfectly, but enough to show that someone had moved a broom across it. The sweep marks were faint and imperfect, but unmistakable. Aaron stopped, feeling that small sign land in the mind with a quiet insistence. A door stood at the far end of the courtyard, set into a building whose roof had partially collapsed but whose entrance remained intact. The door was made of iron banding over wood, and it was slightly ajar. Aaron approached and knocked softly, not because knocking would necessarily be answered, but because the act acknowledged the possibility of another person's space. For a moment there was no response. Then, from within, a voice spoke, low and steady. "If you're looking for shelter, come in. If you're looking for a story, sit outside until you forget why you asked." Aaron paused, then stepped through the doorway. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of oil and old stone. The room was lit by a small lamp on a table, and beside the lamp sat a person bent over a set of tools. Their hair was dark and cut short. Their hands moved carefully, wiping a blade's edge with cloth, not polishing for display, but maintaining for function. A rack on the wall held several implements, not weapons meant for parade, but knives, shears, chisels, and small hammers, all kept in usable condition. The person looked up, eyes calm, expression neutral. "You're on the caretaker road," they said. "Yes," Aaron replied. They nodded once. "I'm Ansel," they said. "Sit if you want. Don't touch the tools unless you ask." Aaron sat on a low stool near the doorway, hands resting loosely on knees. "I won't touch anything," Aaron said. Ansel returned to the blade, then set it down and began sharpening a chisel with slow strokes. The sound was soft, like stone whispering against metal. "What do you do here?" Aaron asked, keeping the voice quiet. Ansel's shoulders rose and fell in a small breath. "I keep edges," they said. "Not for fighting. For cutting rope. For carving wood. For opening sacks. For the small acts that become impossible if tools become dull." Aaron listened, feeling the description align with the patterns encountered so far, but forming a new weight. Maintenance as a discipline that did not depend on drama to justify itself. "You're alone?" Aaron asked. Ansel's mouth tightened slightly, not in pain, but in thought. "Mostly," they said. "Sometimes people come through. They leave something, take something. We don't make it sentimental. Sentiment is another kind of hoarding." Aaron glanced at a shelf where small items were arranged: a coil of twine, a tin cup, a bundle of cloth scraps, a jar of oil, a stack of clean rags. Practical things, gathered without excess. "I write about places," Aaron said. "And people." Ansel's eyes flicked briefly to the parchment bundle. "Then write this place accurately," they said. "Don't call it a sanctuary. Don't call it a ruin. It's a station. A pause where certain tasks can be done without being interrupted." Aaron felt the word station settle. It was neither hopeful nor bleak. It was functional. It described exactly what it needed to. Ansel set the chisel down and reached for another tool. "If you're moving on," they said, "you'll need to know something about the road ahead. The black stone continues, but it breaks where the land shifted. There's a detour through shallow marsh. It isn't dangerous, but it will slow you, and it will try to persuade you that slow means lost. It doesn't." Aaron absorbed the instruction, not as reassurance, but as practical guidance that had been earned through repeated passage. Ansel stood and walked to a small hearth in the corner, where embers still held warmth. They placed a kettle over it and poured water from a ceramic jug. The gesture was unadorned, as if hospitality here was simply part of the station's function. "You can rest a while," Ansel said. "Then go. If you linger too long, you'll start inventing reasons to stay, and reasons are heavy to carry on the road." Aaron sat quietly, listening to the kettle begin its faint heat sounds. The station's calm did not feel like an ending. It felt like another hinge in the world, another place where continuation took a shape you could hold in your hands without squeezing it. And when the water warmed and Ansel poured a cup without ceremony, Aaron accepted it, letting the heat touch the palms, letting the mind stay simple for a moment before the road asked for movement again. Aaron drank the warm water slowly, feeling it move through the chest and settle without resistance. Ansel returned the kettle to its place and resumed work, not hovering, not watching. The station held its quiet shape, each object resting where it could be reached again without searching. The light from the lamp did not push back the shadows so much as coexist with them, allowing the room to remain whole. After a while, Aaron rose. The body felt ready in a way that did not require motivation. "Thank you," Aaron said, not as a conclusion, but as acknowledgement of a task completed together. Ansel inclined their head once. "The road will tell you what it needs," they said. "Listen for effort, not for meaning." Aaron stepped back into the courtyard. The sweep marks on the stone were already softening under the afternoon light. Nothing here tried to preserve itself beyond usefulness. That, Aaron realized, was why the place endured. Beyond the station, the black stone road narrowed and began to show its age. Some slabs were cracked, their edges lifted slightly where roots had pressed from below. Others were missing entirely, leaving gaps filled with compacted earth and gravel. Aaron adjusted pace and posture, allowing the feet to choose carefully without anxiety. The road did not punish missteps. It simply required attention. The land sloped downward again, and the air grew heavier, carrying the faint smell of wet soil. Ahead, the marsh Ansel had mentioned revealed itself gradually. Reeds rose in dense stands, their tips whispering softly against one another. Pools of shallow water reflected the sky in broken patches, interrupted by grasses and low hummocks. The path through was marked by narrow boards laid end to end, some slightly submerged, others dry. Aaron stepped onto the first board and felt it flex gently. The sound it made was not alarming, only present. Each step required balance, a quiet negotiation between body and surface. Progress slowed naturally. The world here did not allow hurry, but it did not accuse those who moved carefully. Insects hovered low over the water, their movements tracing small, repetitive patterns that never quite closed. Birds called from deeper in the reeds, unseen. The marsh did not open itself for inspection. It offered fragments, a ripple here, a flash of wing there, the smell of decaying plant matter mixed with new growth. Halfway through, Aaron stopped on a wider platform where the boards formed a small square. Someone had driven stakes into the mud and lashed them together to create this resting place. A flat stone sat at its center, dry and smooth, placed deliberately. Aaron sat and let the legs rest, listening to the marsh breathe. The slowing that Ansel had warned about arrived not as frustration, but as a quiet questioning. The mind began to suggest that perhaps this was not progress at all, that perhaps the road had dissolved into this half-land, half-water space where direction lost clarity. Aaron noticed the suggestion and let it pass. The boards ahead were visible. They continued. That was enough. When Aaron stood again and resumed, the thought did not return. It had done its work by appearing and then losing relevance. On the far side, the ground firmed gradually. Reeds thinned. The air lightened. Aaron stepped off the final board onto solid earth and felt the body respond with a subtle readiness, as if relieved to return to a surface that accepted weight without negotiation. The path reassembled itself into packed dirt bordered by stones set low. Ahead, the land rose into a series of gentle hills. On one of them stood the remains of a tower, not tall, but wide at the base, its upper portion collapsed inward. Around it, the ground bore signs of former activity. Shallow trenches, scattered stones that might once have been walls, a few rusted fragments of metal half swallowed by grass. Aaron approached the tower slowly. Near its base, a figure sat on a low stool, back against the stone, hands busy with a task too small to see at first. As Aaron drew closer, the task resolved into mending a net, the kind used for fishing or for carrying loose items. The figure was slight, their hair pulled back tightly, their movements precise and economical. They did not look up until Aaron was close enough that greeting felt appropriate rather than intrusive. "You're walking alone," they said, voice neutral. "Yes," Aaron replied. "That usually means you're listening," the figure said, and returned to the net without waiting for confirmation. Aaron stopped at a respectful distance. "Do you live here?" Aaron asked. The figure shook their heads slightly. I stay here, they said. Living implies attachment. Staying implies attention. Aaron absorbed the distinction without comment. My name is Tamsin, they said, fingers still moving. I watch this hill because people forget it exists. Why does it matter? Aaron asked. Tamsin pulled a knot tight and set the net aside. Only then did they look up. Their eyes were steady, their expression unadorned. Because this tower once held a signal fire, they said. Not for war, for weather. When storms came from the east, the fire was lit to warn the lowlands. When the storms passed, it was extinguished. What happened to it? Aaron asked. Tamsin glanced toward the collapsed upper stones. The storms stopped being predictable, they said. People decided warning was useless if it couldn't be precise. The fire went untended. The tower followed. Aaron looked at the broad base, the thick stones still holding. Why stay now? Aaron asked. Tamsin picked up the net again. Because storms still come, they said. And because even if no one looks, the act of watching changes how you move through the day. Aaron considered that, feeling it align with Hale's tending, Porin's orchard, Ansel's station. Each place had asked for a different posture of attention, none of them dramatic. I'm writing, Aaron said, not as justification, but as context. Tamsin nodded once. Then write that some warnings aren't meant to be seen, they said. They're meant to keep the watcher honest. Aaron sat on a stone nearby. The hill's breeze was gentle, carrying the smell of marsh and dry grass. From here, the land could be read in layers, the marsh's darker band, the valley beyond, the distant ridges softened by haze. Clouds moved slowly overhead, their shadows sliding across the ground without urgency. Tamsin finished mending the net and hung it on a peg driven into the tower's stone. They stood and stretched, rolling shoulders that had learned the shape of long, quiet work. You'll go on, Tamsin said, not asking. Yes. Take the eastern slope when you leave, Tamsin said. The western one looks easier, but it collects water and turns treacherous without warning. The east is longer, but honest. Aaron nodded, committing the instruction without ceremony. As the afternoon waned, Aaron helped gather loose stones at the tower's base, stacking them in a way that suggested order without pretending to restore what had fallen. Tamsin did not comment. The work existed for itself. When the light began to soften, Aaron rose. Thank you, Aaron said. Tamsin inclined their heads slightly. If you come back, they said, bring twine. It disappears faster than you expect. Aaron smiled faintly, the expression small and unperformed, then shouldered the pack and took the eastern slope. The descent was gradual. The ground was firm, the path clear. As Aaron walked, the sense of accumulation grew, not of burden, but of orientation. Each place left a residue that did not cling, but informed how the next step was taken. At the slope's base, the path joined another road, this one narrower and bordered by low stone markers set at irregular intervals. Some had fallen, others leaned. A few stood straight, their tops worn smooth by weather and passing hands. They marked not ownership, but passage. Aaron followed the markers as the light faded toward evening. The sky took on muted tones, and the first stars began to appear, faint and scattered. Ahead, a small cluster of lights emerged, not a settlement, but a handful of lanterns placed along a roadway, evenly spaced. As Aaron approached, the reason became clear. The road here crossed a shallow ravine where the ground dipped unexpectedly. The lanterns were placed to guide travelers safely through at night, each one tended, each flame steady and low. Near the first lantern stood a young woman adjusting a wick. She looked up as Aaron approached, eyes alert but unguarded. "Evening," she said. "Evening," Aaron replied. "You're not from the ridge," she said, more observation than challenge. "No." She nodded. "I'm Kara." "We keep the lights," she said, gesturing along the road. "Not because it's dangerous. Because people get tired and tired people trip." Aaron looked along the lantern line, appreciating the simplicity of the task. "How long have you been doing this?" Aaron asked. Kara shrugged lightly. "As long as I've been here. Before me, someone else did. Before them, someone else. We don't mark years. We mark nights that pass without incident." Aaron felt the statement settle as fact, not philosophy. "Do you need help?" Aaron asked. Kara smiled faintly. "You can walk with me while I check the rest," she said. Two sets of eyes catch more wind shifts. They walked together, lantern to lantern. Kara adjusted wicks, shielded flames briefly with her hand when a breeze threatened, and moved on. Aaron watched, learning the quiet choreography of maintenance in motion. At the last lantern, Kara paused. "You'll continue past here," she said. "Yes." She nodded. "Then remember this stretch," she said. "Not the lights. The reason for them." Aaron nodded. When they parted, Kara turned back along the road, her lantern swinging slightly, her steps unhurried. Aaron continued forward, the road narrowing again, the darkness deepening but never becoming absolute. Later, Aaron found a place to rest beneath an overhang of rock. The ground was dry, the air still. Aaron laid out a blanket and sat for a while before lying down, looking at the stars framed by stone. The mind reviewed the day not as story, but as sequence: station, marsh, hill, lanterns. Each place had asked for a different kind of attention. None had asked for belief. Before sleep, Aaron wrote again. The words were sparse. They described nets mended, boards laid, stones stacked, flames shielded from wind. They did not describe feelings. The feelings were already changing, quietly, as consequence. When Aaron lay back and closed the eyes, the body relaxed into the ground support. The road remained ahead, unseen but present. And as the night held steady, nothing rushed, nothing demanded, nothing needed to be concluded yet. The night under the stone overhang thinned slowly, not because dawn hurried, but because darkness chose to release its hold in small increments. Aaron woke without the feeling of having crossed a boundary between sleep and waking. It was more like a gradual re-entry into the same state with eyes open. The stars had faded to a pale scattering, and the sky held the color of watered ash. Aaron gathered the blanket, folded it once, and packed it away with the same care given to parchment and tools. Nothing here required haste. The road beyond the ravine would still be there when Aaron reached it. Roads, Aaron had learned, were patient in ways people were not. Moving on, the path climbed again, though less steeply than before. The land here felt older, not in the sense of decay, but in the way stone settles when it has long accepted its own weight. Low ridges rose and fell like shallow breaths. Grass grew thinner, replaced by patches of bare earth and clusters of pale flowers that closed slightly as the light shifted. The lanterns behind were no longer visible. Their absence did not create darkness. It simply removed guidance, leaving orientation to memory and attention. Aaron adjusted to that easily. There had been many days without markers. By mid-morning, the road broadened into a flat stretch where the wind moved freely. Here, the sound of footsteps carried farther, and Aaron became aware of the body as a presence in space rather than a private mechanism. Each step had a sound. Each sound had a duration. Nothing echoed long enough to become haunting. Ahead, A line of standing stones emerged, unevenly spaced, some upright, others leaning at angles that suggested long negotiation with gravity. They were not arranged in a circle or a recognizable pattern. Instead, they followed the road loosely, as if placed by different hands at different times, all agreeing only that the path should be marked somehow. Aaron slowed near the first stone. Its surface was rough, marked with shallow grooves that might once have meant something. Weather had softened them until they were almost decorative, almost accidental. Aaron rested a hand against it briefly. The stone was cool, solid, unconcerned. Between the stones, small offerings had been left over time. Not piles, not altars, just objects set down with minimal ceremony. A strip of cloth tied around a stone's base. A broken arrowhead pressed into the dirt. A copper coin flattened thin. These were not gestures of hope. They were acknowledgments of passage. Aaron did not add anything. The act of noticing felt sufficient here. Beyond the stones, the road dipped into a shallow basin where the ground darkened with moisture. A low fog hovered close to the earth, not thick enough to obscure, only enough to soften edges. Movement felt slower in this space, not because the ground resisted, but because the eye could not reach as far ahead. In the basin stood a structure unlike the others Aaron had seen. It was low and wide, built of stone fitted so tightly that seams were barely visible. Its roof was intact, formed of overlapping slabs that shed water efficiently. No smoke rose from it. No sound came from within. The entrance faced the road directly, open but uninviting, not because of danger, but because it offered no clues. Aaron approached and paused at the threshold. Inside, the air was cool and dry. The space was empty except for a long stone table set at the center and shelves carved directly into the walls. On the shelves lay objects arranged with deliberate spacing. Not many. Enough. Aaron stepped inside and let the eyes adjust. The objects revealed themselves slowly. Scroll cases without scrolls, bowls without residue, small boxes closed but not locked. The table bore scratches and shallow cuts, not random, but aligned, as if tools had been set down repeatedly in the same positions. A place for sorting, Aaron realized. For deciding what remained useful. At the far end of the room, seated on a stool carved from a single block of stone, was a woman with hair streaked gray at the temples. She wore simple clothing and no ornament. Her posture was upright without stiffness, as if she had learned how to sit with patience rather than endurance. "You can come in," she said, voice steady. "You already have." Aaron moved closer. "I didn't mean to intrude." "There's nothing here to intrude upon," she replied. "Only things passing through." Aaron stopped near the table. "What is this place?" She looked at the shelves, then back at Aaron. "A weighing room," she said. "Not for goods. For intentions." Aaron waited. "People bring things here when they no longer know why they're carrying them," she continued. "They set them down. Sometimes they leave with less. Sometimes with more. Sometimes with the same things, but lighter." Aaron thought of the bundle of parchment, the map, the stone from the river, the tinder. Each object had entered the pack for a reason that made sense at the time. Whether those reasons still applied was another question. "My name is Lisa," she said. "If names still matter to you." "They do," Aaron replied. "I'm Aaron." Lisa nodded once. "Sit," she said, gesturing to the opposite side of the table. Aaron sat. The stone was cool even through clothing. The table's surface bore faint traces of charcoal that had been cleaned but not erased entirely. "You're not here by accident," Lisa said. "But you're also not here by destiny. Those are the only two categories people try to use anymore, and both are lazy. Erin did not disagree. "What are you carrying that no longer earns its weight?" she asked. The question did not feel invasive. It felt procedural. Erin looked down at the pack, then back up. "I don't know yet," Erin said. "That's acceptable," Lisa replied. "Then we begin with observation." She reached beneath the table and brought up a shallow tray carved with simple divisions. She set it between them. "Place one thing here," she said. "Not the heaviest. The one you feel least certain about." Erin hesitated, then removed the smooth stone Porin had given and placed it in the tray. It made a soft sound, more felt than heard. Lisa regarded it without touching. "Why this?" "It doesn't ask anything," Erin said. "And yet I carry it." Lisa nodded. "Then it's not ready to leave," she said, and slid the tray back to Erin. "Uncertainty is not the same as excess." She leaned back slightly. "You've been walking a long time," she said. "Long enough that continuation has become identity." Erin felt the truth of that settle uncomfortably, not as accusation, but as recognition. "You will come to a place soon," Lisa continued, "where the road does not break, but divides in a way that cannot be retraced. Not because it collapses. Because after it, you will no longer be the same kind of traveler." Erin felt a subtle tightening in the chest. Not fear. Anticipation without clarity. "This room exists," Lisa said, "so that moment does not arrive unexamined." Erin sat with that. The fog outside pressed faintly against the doorway, never crossing the threshold. "Stay as long as you need," Lisa said, "or leave now. Both are valid. But when you go, do not carry anything out of habit alone." Erin nodded slowly. The road beyond the basin waited, not impatient, not urgent. For the first time, Erin felt that the next stretch would not simply be walked. It would be chosen in a way that could not be undone. And that awareness, quiet and irreversible, settled into place as the day continued to move forward. Erin remained seated at the stone table longer than expected, not because Lisa watched, and not because the room demanded reflection, but because the body recognized a rare stillness that did not feel like delay. The fog outside shifted slightly, thinning at the doorway and thickening again, as if testing whether the interior would accept it. It did not. The room held its boundary without effort. When Erin finally stood, Lisa did not mark the moment. She had returned to the shelves, adjusting the position of an empty box by a finger's width, aligning it with the stone seam behind it. The movement suggested that order here was not imposed, but tuned. Erin stepped back onto the road, the fog brushing lightly against boots and cloak. Within a few paces, the structure behind was already indistinct, its edges dissolving into the basin's muted air. It did not vanish. It simply withdrew, as if content to be remembered only when needed. The road beyond the basin rose gradually, the fog thinning with each step. Sound returned first, the faint rasp of wind over grass, the distant call of a bird whose shape never appeared. Then clarity followed. Hills emerged, their slopes marked by scattered stones and low shrubs that bent in consistent directions, shaped by years of the same prevailing currents. At the crest of the rise, the land opened into a broad expanse where the road divided as Lisa had described. Not abruptly, not dramatically. The split occurred with such subtlety that one could walk into it without realizing a choice had been made until it was no longer reversible. The left path continued as the black stone road, repaired in places, broken in others, but still bearing the signs of frequent passage. Its markers were familiar: standing stones, shallow ditches cut for water, the occasional remnant of a way station long collapsed. It led toward regions Erin recognized from maps and rumor, places where people gathered and rebuilt and argued over how best to persist. The right path was narrower, unpaved. Its surface packed earth mixed with gravel. It followed the contour of the hills rather than cutting through them. There were no markers beyond the occasional cairn built from stones that did not quite match, suggesting they had been gathered wherever hands happened to reach. Aaron stood between them. The moment did not rush. The air did not shift. The body did not lean instinctively toward either. What changed was quieter. The sense that whichever path was taken would shape not only where Aaron went, but how future choices would feel. Aaron remembered Sella's map, folded carefully among the parchments. It showed both routes, but with different annotations. The black stone road bore notes about settlements, resources, points of exchange. The narrow path bore fewer words, but more space between them, as if the cartographer had known when not to fill the page. Aaron stepped onto the narrower path. The choice did not produce relief. It produced alignment. The body adjusted its gait, shortening stride slightly, accommodating uneven ground. The pack settled differently against the shoulders. The road accepted Aaron's weight without protest, but without guidance either. Each turn revealed only the next short stretch, never the whole. The hills grew steeper. The wind strengthened, carrying the smell of dry stone and distant water. Grass gave way to patches of exposed rock, and the path narrowed further, sometimes no more than a suggestion traced by repeated passage. By afternoon, Aaron reached a high shelf overlooking a wide plain. From this height, the land spread out in muted tones. Browns, grays, the occasional green where water collected. In the distance, a line of mountains held the horizon, their peaks softened by haze. Between here and there lay a scattering of ruins, not clustered, not monumental, simply present. Near the shelf's edge stood a small shelter built from stone and timber, its roof slanted to deflect wind. A single post beside it held a metal disc that caught the light faintly. When the wind moved just right, the disc turned and produced a soft, resonant tone, not loud enough to carry far, but clear within a small radius. Aaron approached and listened. The sound did not repeat in a pattern. It responded to the wind's angle and strength, creating a shifting note that was never quite the same twice. Inside the shelter sat a man with his back to the wall, legs stretched out, eyes closed. He held no tools. His hands rested loosely at his sides, palms open. He appeared neither asleep nor alert, but something in between. Aaron did not speak at first. The sound of the wind disc filled the space adequately. After a while, the man opened his eyes and looked toward Aaron without surprise. "You heard it," he said. "Yes," Aaron replied. "That's why it's here," the man said. "So people don't forget the wind exists even when it's calm." Aaron stepped inside the shelter. The air was cooler, the stone holding the day's temperature evenly. "Do you stay here?" Aaron asked. "I pass through," the man said. "Often enough that it feels like staying. Not often enough to pretend it's mine." Aaron nodded. "I'm Aaron." The man inclined his head. "I'm Corin," he said. "I listen." Aaron sat on the shelter's low bench. "To what?" Corin gestured broadly, encompassing the plain, the mountains, the wind's movement. "To when it's time to stop walking for the day," he said. "Most people push past that moment. They think exhaustion proves something." Aaron considered the miles already walked since dawn. The body felt used, but not depleted. "How do you know?" Aaron asked. Corin smiled faintly. "Your steps get quieter," he said. "Not because you're careful. Because you're emptying out." They sat together in silence, listening to the disc turn and settle again. The sound carried no message. It existed to mark movement in the air, nothing more. Down there, Corin said eventually, nodding toward the plain, there's a place where roads disappear entirely. Not because the land is hostile, because people stopped agreeing on where they should go next. Aaron followed his gaze. From here, the plain looked smooth, almost inviting. What's there now? Aaron asked. People, Corin said. Scattered, each maintaining something small. Wells, walls, fires. They don't form a settlement because they don't need one. They visit each other when necessary. They leave each other alone when not. Aaron thought of the orchard, the station, the lantern road. The pattern did not repeat. It extended. Why listen to the wind? Aaron asked. Corin leaned his head back against the stone. Because it changes before the land does, he said. And because it reminds me that movement doesn't always belong to the one moving. As the sun lowered, the wind shifted slightly, and the disk's tone deepened. Corin stood and stretched, rolling his shoulders. You can stay, he said. Or you can go on while there's still light. Neither choice means anything about your resolve. Aaron chose to stay. Night came gradually, cooling the stone and quieting the plain below. Corin lit a small fire within the shelter's hearth, just enough to take the edge off the cold. The flames were modest, contained, not meant to be seen from afar. They ate simply, dried food softened with water. Conversation did not wander far. Corin spoke of paths that no longer connected, of bridges that still stood because no one bothered to test their limits. Aaron listened and did not record. Some things were not meant for parchment. When sleep came, it did so cleanly. The wind's sound threaded through dreams without shaping them. The disk's occasional tone drifted in and out of awareness like a distant bell that had forgotten its own purpose. At dawn, Corin was already gone. The fire had been reduced to ash and covered carefully. The shelter stood empty, but not abandoned. The disk still turned in the morning breeze, its tone light again. Aaron resumed the path, descending toward the plain. As the ground leveled, the sense of division faded. There were no more clear choices between roads. Instead, the land offered a network of faint tracks, some crossing, some ending abruptly, others continuing beyond sight. Aaron chose one without overthinking and walked. The first person Aaron encountered on the plain was a woman repairing a low stone wall. She worked alone, stacking stones that fit imperfectly, adjusting them until they held. She glanced up once, acknowledged Aaron with a nod, and returned to her work. Farther on, a man drew water from a well and poured some onto the ground beside it, letting it soak in before filling his container. He did not explain when Aaron passed. The gesture stood on its own. As the day progressed, Aaron passed several such figures, each engaged in a task that did not announce itself. No one asked where Aaron was going. No one offered directions unless asked. When Aaron did ask, the answers were precise but limited, pointing only to the next necessary decision. By late afternoon, Aaron reached a low rise where the plain began to thin again into rougher terrain. From here, the scattered figures became dots, then suggestions. The wind returned with more insistence, carrying dust and the faint scent of distant rain. Aaron paused and looked back once. Not to mark an ending, but to register a shift. The plain did not call. It did not recede. It simply continued without needing Aaron's presence to validate it. The path ahead climbed toward a darker band of land where rock broke through soil more frequently. Above that band, clouds gathered, not threatening, but heavy with unspent weather. Aaron adjusted the pack and continued upward, aware now that the road was beginning to ask for a different kind of attention. Not more effort, more listening. And somewhere ahead, beyond the rise and the clouded stretch, waited the place where movement would finally slow, not because of exhaustion, but because there would be nothing left to carry forward except presence itself. The ground leveled gradually as Aaron climbed out of the darker band of stone and into a stretch of land where nothing asserted itself. The clouds overhead loosened, thinning into long pale strands that allowed light to pass without sharpening it. The wind softened, no longer carrying grit or warning, only movement. Here, the road did not disappear, but it stopped insisting on being followed. It existed as possibility rather than direction. Aaron slowed, not from fatigue, but because the body no longer needed to negotiate each step. Muscles settled into an easy rhythm. Breathing evened out. The pack rested against the shoulders with a familiarity that no longer registered as weight. Everything being carried had found its place, not because it had been justified, but because nothing unnecessary remained. Ahead lay a wide, open stretch of land where grass grew short and even, as if worn down by years of patient passage. No ruins broke the surface. No structures marked human intention. The absence did not feel empty. It felt complete in a way that did not require explanation. Aaron walked until walking stopped feeling like movement toward something else. When that moment arrived, Aaron paused naturally, without deciding to stop. The body chose stillness the way it had chosen roads before, quietly, without argument. The sky above held a gentle, neutral light. Not morning, not evening. A time between definitions. The air was cool enough to be noticed and warm enough to be forgotten again moments later. Somewhere far away, water moved, not loudly, not nearby, just enough to remind the land that circulation continued. Aaron sat down on the grass and let the pack slide from the shoulders. The simple sound it made against the ground felt final without being conclusive. There was no sense of arrival, no satisfaction that demanded acknowledgement. There was only the recognition that nothing else needed to be done right now. One by one, the moments of the journey settled into quiet places inside the body. Not as memories to revisit, but as changes already completed. The orchard's patience. The station's discipline. The lantern's modest care. The plane's distributed life. None of these called back. They remained where they belonged, shaping how Aaron now rested. Aaron did not open the parchments. There was no need to add another line. What mattered had already passed into consequence. Writing would resume another day, or it would not. Either outcome no longer felt urgent. As time moved, barely perceptible, the light shifted again, lowering gently, softening the edges of the world. The land seemed to exhale. Aaron leaned back slightly, hands resting on the ground, feeling the steady support beneath the palms. The earth did not react. It did not need to. If you are listening now, you do not need to follow further. The road has done what it needed to do. Nothing here will rise suddenly. Nothing will ask you to decide. You are allowed to remain exactly where you are, whether that feels like watching or like resting. Let your breathing find its own length. Let the spaces between thoughts widen without being filled. The world of this telling will continue, quietly, without your attention holding it together. You can stay with the image of open ground and softened light for as long as it feels comfortable. Or you can let it fade naturally, the way footsteps fade after someone has passed. There is no need to keep walking now. You have reached a place where stillness is enough. Thank you for staying until the end. If you enjoyed this story, please leave a comment, like, and share it. Your support is very important and helps us continue our work. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next story.